Wonderful. I can see a bunch of attendees already joining. My name is Jason Lindstrom, and I'll be kicking things off in about 30 more seconds. Excellent. Looks like a ton of attendees are starting to roll in, which is wonderful.
We got a great guest today, Jason. I'm not surprised.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So you know what I'll do is I'll kick off the intro here and introduce the host as well as we let attendees continue to roll in. So today we're going to be talking about belonging and bringing your values to life. And the hosts today are myself. I'm one of the managing partners here over at Bucket List Rewards. With me as well as Olga Gimbel from the Bucket List Rewards team as well. And of course, Jerry Grattan, who I'm sure many of you have now gotten to know from our Culture Builders Bootcamp. So we're excited to be interviewing Dr. Bob, who I'll be introducing in just one moment. As always, I'm going to start off with a poll question. So,
all right, looking forward to this one.
Yeah, me too. Me too. It's very relevant. So I'm just launching that up on screen. So I'd love to find out from the people who've joined the call today, how alive and well are the core values of your organization? So if you want to go ahead and answer that. I can see a bunch of responses rolling in, which is wonderful.
Maybe a couple people checking the bottom drawer of their desk for those core values. I know they're there somewhere. It's okay.
Excellent. I'm going to go ahead and end the poll, and I'll just share the results so everybody can see them. So it looks like a big chunk of you
fantastic
say that the core values are known by all, but we try our best to live them. And I think in today's session, Dr. Bob will certainly be able to help us with that. And it looks like another big chunk of you, they're hanging on the wall, but not memorable. I've certainly experienced that, as I'm sure many of us have, walking into the office, seeing them up on a wall there. So wonderful. Go ahead and close this poll down. And as always, our agenda, I'm going to do a quick recap on our mission. We'll be spending the majority of time doing a bit of Q&A and doing a conversation with Dr. Bob. And then at the end, we actually have 4 great bonuses, and I'll walk through those in a moment. And just as a quick recap, the whole point of this, and we're going to go deep with this today as well, is the Culture Builders Bootcamp. We're really on a mission to connect people leaders and really help you build the best cultures possible. And that's by giving you access to industry experts and allowing you to ask questions that are most pressing to you and relevant to the speaker. So speaking of questions, there is the option to ask questions as we go through today's session. Please feel free to enter those into the Q&A window, and we'll go through those at the end of today's session. But those definitely add a lot of value to today's conversation. Next, I'd love to welcome Dr. Bob Nelson. I've had a chance to, actually, I've known Dr. Bob for a few years now, and he truly is a delight to chat to, an awesome expert in his quite wide array of information. But I'd love to give you a bit of a backgrounder. He's considered to be a leading advocate for employee recognition and engagement worldwide. He's worked with 80% of Fortune 500 companies and presented on 6 continents. He's been featured extensively in national and international media, including outlets like the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and many, many others. He's also sold over 5 million books, including topics like 1,501 Ways to Reward Employees, the Management Bible, and his latest book, The 1,001 Ways to Engage Employees. What's really cool is Dr. Ball has been kind enough to give everybody a copy of that book who's attending today's session. So that's one of our takeaways. And Dr. Bob, thank you so much for that. So I love to say, please, well, electronic copies. Yeah, I love to say welcome to the Guru of Thank You. Dr. Bob, welcome to today's interview.
Thank you, Jason. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So give me a moment here. I'm just gonna make sure we're featured on you, the speaker.
There we go.
Yeah, why don't we get into it? I'd love to start off with our questions. So just to carry on with that, you're known as the Guru of Thank You. From your perspective, why is the simple act of thanking so important to a healthy workplace culture?
Well, it's actually the greatest management principle in the world is you get what you reward. So we probably have 400 studies that systematically demonstrate that that's true when it comes to people. What you notice gets repeated. So by thanking someone in all the different ways you can do that, you're more than likely to have them repeat whatever they did and probably do it better the next time. And then also inspire those people that saw you did it, so they'll do the same thing. So it's a very powerful, simple but powerful principle that tends to be underutilized. And that's I actually so I got interested in the topic from a graduate school class. I was taking a class in on management control systems, and my professor was talking about reinforcement theory, and he made an offhand comment that as proven as this principle is for driving performance, it hasn't been used very much in business. And I said, I'm going to do something about that. And so I got home and wrote a letter off to a publisher and did a book called 1,001 Ways to Reward Employees. That hey, and here's the original copy, one of the only original copies they have left. It's now sold 2 million copies and was expanded into 1,501 Ways to Reward Employees. And that was all like 25 years ago. So it keeps selling, and I keep loving it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I love, oh, sorry, Jay, can I jump in?
Yeah, please. Yeah, jump
good.
in. Yeah.
I'm really excited to have this conversation with you, Dr. Bob. So I'm like jumping in before maybe it's even my turn, but can just expanding. I love hearing stories and examples and things. And so, maybe it tied into the simple act of showing gratitude and thanking, but from your book 1,001 Ways to Engage Employees, there's so many examples cited of sort of doing the right thing on that
Yes.
front. What are some of your favorites, or the ones that you think carry the most punch that you can share with us today?
Well, basically, recognition is all around us every day. So it's just a matter of opening your eyes to the possibilities and then utilizing it. But I guess one of my favorites at Hewlett Packard, a senior manager, one day he had an employee burst into his office and said, "You won't believe it. I fixed that software bug. He'd been working on it for weeks." And the manager, wanting to do the right thing, literally groped around on his desk and handed this senior computer programmer a banana from his lunch, saying, "Great job. I knew you could do it." And off he went. And as silly and frivolous as that is, that employee showed everyone the banana the boss gave him and why it took on a life and a story today in that division in Hewlett Packard, Sunnyvale, California. The most prestigious reward for technical excellence is the Golden Banana Award. So it went on to be, and it could be that simple, that silly and simple, and then for them, they found that if you try something, then you can always do more with it. So they created, if you find something works, you can always make a bigger thing of it. And they create a little lapel pin out of a little banana, and they give it to people that get the award, and they wear it in on their name tag, and at a glance people know they're part of the high performers group. So this has driven an incredible amount of work and success on the part of their technical staff for silly banana. So that's a fun one. There's really no limit. It's all, that's really what I've come to realize, that initially it started with just a few ideas, but then the more I asked people, the more I got, and it's just all of a sudden, and that if you can actually see it all around you, then all of a sudden, you're on your road to making it a very doable thing that everyone in the company starts doing, and you create a culture of recognition, and then bigger things happen. So the topic works in any relationship in your life.
Great.
And any team. But if you get it going and you get a critical mass in your organization, it drives huge success for the organization. If you could truly say that you work in a culture of recognition, then research indicates that employees will be 5 times more likely to feel valued, 6 times more likely to share they work at a best place to work, 7 times more likely to stay with the organization, 11 times more likely to be completely committed to their work, their manager, the mission of the organization. It's just huge response from getting a critical mass of leaders to take it seriously in any organization.
And it all goes back to recognition and thanking. And in this case, here's a banana.
Yeah,
it's so good.
Or it could be a bucket list choice. That would be pretty cool.
That's true. I feel so validated by that. And we did not rehearse this, but at a previous, before I went off bravely into the consulting world at a previous company, the team created the Golden Gnome Award. And they may have come across this gnome in questionable ways, but that Golden Gnome became such a coveted sort of kind of like almost employee of the month sort of award. And it took on a life of its own. And I think if you hashtag Golden Gnome at that company, you can find pictures of people proudly sort of displaying themselves with the gnome. So thank you for that.
A Vancouver example. I was working there with a school board, and they were trying to get more recognition going, and they were unionized, and so that was part of the challenge, because the union had to approve stuff, and they, and darn, in our session, the head of the union, when we started talking about the topic, he said, I worked at a construction company, and one day the manager, he brought in a little gold ducky, one of those things in the pools, and he put it on someone's desk, and we didn't know why. And we found out that was because the guy, finished the project or whatever it was, and then he started doing that every day. He would be on someone's desk, and people couldn't wait to see where it was, and it was like, wow. And so this was the head of the union talking. So it's like, okay, this is going to happen.
You're like, I think I got through to them.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
I love it.
Thank you for that.
Maybe kind of a follow-up to that. So you gave a great example from HP, a really good example from a school board you've worked with. Could you give any more examples, maybe from a finance organization that you've worked with, or insurance, or perhaps maybe an organization where they have a workshop floor?
Insurance one. Okay. Got AAA of Southern California. They had they have it's called a Dump a Dog Award, that when you finish a project, you can take anything that you have to do for your job and give it to your boss to do for you.
Love it. Dump a dog.
It's
Love that.
very popular. They make a big deal out of it. And you think it's so easy, you try it, So
how do the managers feel about that?
Oh, everyone loves it. Everyone loves it, and so that's that's part of it. You got to get everyone involved. They and if the problems that you're having are because of managers or upper managers aren't on board, then you find a way to loop them in. I worked with a manufacturing company that they had a great honor that they would have an employee vote, and they would for an executive, and they'd have the executive be honored, and part of the honor for the executive was to come work on the front on the line. And it helped on a lot of stuff. They it's hot here. How come we don't have air conditioning? We've been trying to get air conditioning for years, and later that week they got air conditioning. To have that person come walk in everyone else's shoes. So you can have fun and be creative with it, and it has lots of magical implications.
I love it. And one other theme I've kind of noticed is you've talked about a banana, we've talked about the golden gnome, and I know you're excellent at this, and I wanted to, I guess, emphasize this. A lot of those recognitions or awards, let's say, have very little cost or no cost associated with them. And you're definitely talking more about the actor recognition, and you're an expert at this. Yeah, and maybe you could speak a little bit more about that.
Yeah, actually, that gets me in trouble a lot, because there's a lot of incentive companies out there, and and they don't want to hear that you can make this happen without any money. So which you can, but that I talk in terms of more of that should be the starting point, the foundation. And then if you go above and beyond on something, then that's great too. So it's not that you never spend money. It's like the first step is behavioral. So for each manager in their sphere of influence, noticing the things that stand out and saying or doing something to reinforce them.
Yeah,
But
we
where it goes
work
from there
with
can be all over.
we
Travel,
work with a
merchandise, on and on.
I was just going to say we work with a couple of organizations like the University of Texas Arlington, and virtually all their rewards are technically free, whether it's kind of like things like company swag or time off, and they've gotten a huge response in engagement with their program. And something that I've certainly seen is that the active recognition is massively powerful, and the rewards are often a lot of fun as well, but it's the recognition is where the starting point is from. But Olga, I think you had a pretty good question you wanted to jump in here with. Maybe I can turn it over to you.
Yeah. No, thanks for sharing the examples. I was wondering if you can share some thoughts on the connection between the core values and the employee engagement.
Yes, well, one of the things you want to reinforce in terms of desired behavior would be core values. If most companies have put time and thought into what are the values that will distinguish us in our industry, and they're not going to be doing anything for you if you're not using them. So so a lot of companies, when they get to recognize, that would be a standard thing that they would focus on. What's of our 4 core values? How can we call people out when they have been seen doing that? And then that could be as simple as giving them a token. It could be creating an honor roll. It could be employee of the month. A lot of variations on that. At Yum Brands, at Kentucky Fried Chicken, they have a employee of the month, and there's no limit to how many can be on it. That's not a quota. A lot of people do employee of the month, and there's one winner, and everyone else loses, and becomes a popularity contest, and kind of starts exciting, and then it goes downhill. As people are saying, hey, we got to name employee of the month. Well, we just did that. Yeah, that was 30 days ago. We got to name someone else, and it's like we're running out of people to name, and all of a sudden the criteria kind of goes. And what about Fred and shipping? Well, he deserve it. Who cares? We're gonna be here all day to pick somebody, and then Fred gets it. What does he say? If I knew if I hung around here long enough, someone would notice me, and then so it could start with a good intention, but then get sidetracked. At Kentucky Fried Chicken, they have any number of people can be. If you do their core values, whoever has been spotted in the last month doing all of their 4 core values, they become employee of the month, and so that sometimes they might have a dozen, sometimes none, and then they invite on to celebrate that. They invite people that play a musical instrument to bring it to work, and that could be a violin or a tuba or whatever, and they give them a list of this month's performers and ask them to go serenade them in their cubicle. And
I love it.
It's a blast. Everyone crams in, and Louie on 3, and it's been so successful that they started a higher level version where they actually bring in a string quartet for a higher level recognition to celebrate people. So you can have, you got to have fun with it,
Love it. How's your tuba playing, Jason?
Yeah, right. Yeah. You wouldn't want to hear my tuba playing or my singing, according to my wife. So, I love to kind of dig a little deeper into the core values, Dr. Bob. And from your experience, what do companies get wrong most when it comes to core values? Whether it's how they establish them or how they're trying to bring them alive, for example. Yeah, from your experience, what do companies get wrong most? Well,
usually there's a good thought involved, but a lot of times I see companies will have, some very, very clear values, and then they'll kind of round it off with some other ones that they really don't know what they mean. And so, or the worst is when they make an acronym out of the values and they're looking for something that begins with an O. pick a value, and then no one really understands what that was about. So it's hard to have that happen if no one really understands it to begin with. So the biggest challenges with values I find is that is making them clear and actionable. So you can have a, you know, any values is kind of looks like the Boy Scout oath. You know, we want to be, you know, competitive, and we want to be innovative, and we want to be, you know, customer oriented, and great. Now, if you just leave it at that, it's going to be kind of fuzzy. So you define, and this is where recognition can help, because you can define the meaning of the values through what is recognized. And then each time you do that, you've got another, there's a clear example of something that was customer service. And so after a while, you get greater clarity on what that value means to the organization. And then it makes it easier for other people to recognize it.
Mm-hmm. I can't remember where I read this, but it was kind of, it was implied that, you know, there's some values that they sort of have become table stakes, and, you know, where, you know, maybe if you're looking for that, like, you know, we need an O for our values or something, that, you know, or we need an I, you know, maybe integrity is table stakes now. And I think they picked on that particular core value, and they said, you know, 60, it was just under 70% of all companies had integrity as a core value. So the point was, you know, can we just assume that integrity is a value across like all workplaces? And if you're trying to pick values that are unique to you, you know, what are those things?
Yeah.
Which I'm on the fence on, because I think, well, does that mean that integrity is not a value anymore? Or anyway, how would you, what do you think of that?
That's a common dilemma that and I worked with one company that said they had integrity and one other one, and they said, oh, actually, it was the United Nations. So maybe I shouldn't be saying this, but they had core values, and one of them was integrity, and it was so important that they didn't even talk about it. It was just assumed that everything we do has high integrity. That, okay, you know, and I thought that was strange. You know, that we're just assume that we're acting with integrity at all times, because no one would accept that they wouldn't ever not be integritous. So it is kind of an interesting, you know, loop, catch 22. But yeah, integrity is an interesting one, because how do you know, how do you demonstrate integrity? You know, well, I didn't lie. You know, it's like it's you know, most values you got to find something that's observable, so someone can catch you doing it right. So integrity is a challenging one.
Yeah.
And so then you got to ask, you know, I mean, it's great to have integrity. I guess in some industries that might be a defining competitive advantage, but yeah, in a lot it would, you know, it seems like it's there because we got to act with integrity. And then how do you spot someone that had integrity? Well, you know, it becomes kind of generic. We look up to Sam because he always does the right thing. It's like, okay, maybe the example of what he did that was the right thing, and was it a hard decision, and why he made it, for the ethics that would make it bring greater clarity to it.
Yeah, thank you. And you know, part of what you just said there, I think, gets to the core of kind of the theme of today's Culture Builder Bootcamp, and it's like it's how those core values are brought to life in an organization. Because if, you know, we all agree, if they're just hanging on the wall, or they're, you know, there's an eagle that says, you know, perseverance, and but no one ever does anything about that, then it's kind of a waste of time. So
the real test is do employees use them in making daily decisions?
Right.
So if they go, okay, we got to decide between this and this. Well, what does our values point to? You know, and maybe are the values rank ordered? You know, so if the customer is going to be right, that's going to trump, you know, or maybe safety is going to trump the customer being right, or whatever. And so if they become useful to people in making operational decisions, then that's a good indicator that they're lived.
And I love that, you said that the best values are ones that you can actually observe and demonstrate. And I think that that's a really great lesson for people to learn. There's, I often work with companies that are either sort of establishing their core values for the first time, or they're tweaking them. Like they're saying, I don't know if these values that we hung on the wall, a decade ago still work. Who, maybe this is a leading question, but who leads the charge on bringing values to life in an organization? Is it the HR people and culture team? Is it the executive team? Is it middle managers? Like who should be leading the charge on, do we have these values right? And how do we make them stick in our organization?
Well, if you really want to step out and walk the talk, like Zappos, they take their values from the employees. And so they ask them what's our most important values, and the ones that rank highest from employees become the company's values. That's like, we're going to mirror what's important to our people. A lot of companies aren't brave enough to do that, but they instead will have a, senior management group will identify them, or have a task force that comes up with something. And again, you know, it's coming up with something and then implementing are two different things. So if you just come up with something, it's not going to typically impact much unless you bring it to life in some way.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah, I have a follow-up question. And how do you think the recognition kind of fits into the core values?
Well, if we can find something observable about the core value, then we have that becomes something that can be recognized. If there's customer service is usually be a good example. That where did someone go above and beyond to satisfy a customer, or to do something that wasn't expected to help a customer out. Um, so telling the story, or identifying the behavior, and acknowledging that person in front of others. There's one company I worked with that they had an unsung heroes award, where they actually went to their customers and they asked for nominations for their employees. Which of our employees do you find most valuable when you work with us? And then they pick someone, and they bring that customer in to present the award to the employee. Wow, very powerful. It wasn't.
Yeah.
There's no talk of favoritism there. That when one of our key
That's
customers
awesome.
says,
Yeah.
when I call your company, I always ask for Sally or Jim, because he always comes through with me. He doesn't voice me to someone else. He takes care of it, and I feel valued and trusted. Wow, if you got a customer saying that, it stands out pretty large in the company. And then maybe we can emulate what that person does. There's
Let's all be like
better.
Sally.
Yeah, no doubt.
Is if I can maybe just add on to that, Olga's question is, like, do companies that name recognition in some way as one of their core values, in your experience, are they better at it because they name it in their core values, or have you seen it, go both ways?
Yeah, usually the things that you name as a core value become stronger principles for you. I'm not sure how many companies I've seen use recognition as a core value. I have, and I remember Cargill, world's largest privately held company in Minnesota. They have a chief recognition officer, so that kind of put high status on the topic, and and a whole network of recognition champions, which I think is a great idea. Every company should have a recognition task force, a committee to talk about what we should be doing. And it's not a money thing. It's not compensation. It's like, we're going to pay you as best we can, but what else should we be focused on to help make it clear what we need from employees? Get a group together that represent the whole organization and all the levels, have an executive sponsor. That's a very powerful committee to kick around ideas and say, hey, let's do this. And it's like that'd probably be a good thing to do. So there's ways to make recognition more integrated into the organization going forward. And you know, a lot of those ways don't necessarily have to be how big the budget is. It could be how creative we loop people in. Like one company I just worked with, that we, in making recognition stronger, they came up with the idea of this take. They had 300 vice presidents. They took 4 of them that were good at this topic, and they had me interview them on camera, and they invited 300 vice presidents to come listen or to attend virtually. And it was just saying, "Oh, gee, why do you do this? And you're so busy. How do you have time to do this? And how's it worked?" And just have them talk about why it's a real principle and why it drives their success, sells it to the colleagues, you know. So there's lots of strategies to get the organization more committed on the topic. In that organization, when they looked at all the employees, the highest ones that used recognition, 5 out of the top 6 were vice presidents, partly because they started at the level to loop them in. So that's a big world of difference than another organization that I'd worked with, where the executive team goes, "Yeah, we'll approve the budget for that, but don't bother with you guys do that. We're not going to do it," you know, and that it isn't real, and they're too important to be dealing with it. That's a mistake, you know. That they should be leading the charge. So a lot of things I focus on, how to get leaders, you know, to lead the charge on this topic, and not expect it all to happen from HR or from, you know, the corporate office.
Yeah.
To own it for my people in my area.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent.
What's the saying? You can't delegate empathy or recognition. Is that the?
Well, you can delegate recognition if you're, that's an option. If I have some managers that just really are not good at it and don't want to do it, and well, you know, you know, I've had CEOs tell me I can't praise someone to their face. I just can't do it. And I go, well, you don't have to do that, but you have to do something. So let's find something else for you to do. And it might be, in that case, that the CEO, he decided to have a breakfast once a month, inviting one person from each department. And they had an open agenda that everyone went around and shared one thing they're working on that makes them excited, including him.
That's cool.
He did that one time. He'd been CEO for 25 years. He'd never done anything like this. He did it one time. He said, "I can't believe I haven't been doing this." He learned so much about his own organization. And then, of course, all the employees, you know, guess who I had breakfast with? Yeah, the president of the company. You know, that's the discussion at home. You know, so it's over the course of the year, he had face-to-face interaction with every employee. So it's I get excited when I see people.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that wasn't my idea either. He came up with it on me talking about, you got to do something. So
yeah,
let's go through the book. You go through the book and pick something. You can't take a pass on this one.
Kind of related to that, you've talked about like how to kickstart or really bring a recognition program alive. So you set up a committee, you get buy-in from senior leaders, you do things like allowing them to have lunch with the CEO. One question I have that's kind of related to that is, how frequently should you be recognizing and reinforcing core values? Is that like a daily thing? Is it a weekly thing, a monthly thing? What do you recommend in terms of frequency?
Well, the greater the frequency, the more it's integrated into the culture. So if you forgot the last time we did it, you're probably not doing it enough.
Good point.
And it can be, you know, if you're doing it around core values, if you got 4 or 5 or 6 core values, it's you got a lot of sway as to what you can focus on. And if you give you know, different ways that people can focus on that, you can have an honor roll of people. You know, Apple, what they do for their core values, they have like, and one of them is integrity, by the way. They print T-shirts with the core value on it, and they give it to the person that they think personifies that value. And then Apple employees, they wanted to collect all the T-shirts. So they got 3 and they're going for all 5. Because they want to walk the talk of being a good employee.
Yeah.
So that's kind of fun, kind of creative.
Yeah, and all for the cost of a T-shirt. It's again,
Exactly.
You don't have to spend a lot of money.
That's good.
They also have a kazoo band at Apple. Who are issued kazoos to use instead of applause, and you got to have fun with it. You got to have fun with it.
Love it.
Great. And Sherry, I think you had another question, a little
yeah, sure.
more on the best thinkers in leadership.
Sure. Yeah. So I mean, we're honored to have you on the program today, and I was excited enough about that, but I also know that you've worked with the likes of like Peter Drucker and Blanchard, to name just a couple, and we'd love to have be able to have everyone on the program, but maybe you could share, like, what are some of the lessons that you've learned from working with, like yourself, some of the great minds in people and culture and values and recognition, etc.
Well, I've always been attracted to simple concepts, almost like the hidden gems that are true, but people aren't utilizing them. And so recognition is one of those. And so I found that Ken Blanchard, who wrote the 1 Minute Manager, he was very much like that as well. He looked at the essence, the simple thing that people did could make a bigger difference. And Peter Drucker, likewise, had very simple concepts, well proven, well founded, and was brilliant in that regard. Actually, Marshall Goldsmith's another one, a very simple approach on. He kind of was credited for creating feedback loops for employees to give their manager feedback, 360 reviews, as was did his doctoral work on, and it's kind of a common sense thing. What if we gave the managers feedback? Maybe that would help us all. So he's and he does executive coaching, which is just incredibly fun and what talk about simple. He has 3 rules for coaching an executive. 1, they have to want to be coached. 2, the people they work with have to want to help them be better. And 3, if they agree to those 2 things, he'll work with them, but you don't have to pay him until he demonstrates results a year later. So that's his whole formula for executive coaching, and it works like a charm.
That's unbelievable. Thank you. Yeah, that's great. How are we doing for questions there, Jay?
I'm just watching for time here. I have one final question for you, and then we'll probably move to wrap in some awesome takeaways and freebies for today's attendees. So obviously, the circumstances of 2020 have really changed the workplace forever. Dr. Bob, I'd love to hear, how do you think companies can build culture when they have, remote or co-located employees? Like, what does the future of work look like, and any tactics or tips that our attendees should take into mind?
Well, it's definitely harder, but still doable if you put your mind to it. So we're doing a Zoom call, and people are doing a lot of Zoom calls, but you can do things on a Zoom call to build community and build connections. You could before you get started, you have everyone share something, their favorite movie. For example, I was on a conference board meeting recently, and that's how they started, just to allow people to interact and get to know each other better, and it has to have a little bit of fun, so it's not just another boring meeting. Or you can do a praise barrage. Praise barrage is a simple idea, and you could do it on Zoom, where you just take your work group and say, hey, before we get started here, I'd like to just go around our group, and as I name someone, I'd like everyone to share what they like about working with that person. Let's start with John. And I tell you, do that in 3 or 4 minutes, and you've given everyone a boost. To give for people to get positive feedback on how others see them is a powerful thing. And I guarantee you, whatever they're called out for, they can do more of that type of thing. So it makes for a stronger team, and it's a simple activity. You can do it on Zoom, and then next time you're together, you can do it with index cards, and everyone give thank yous to other people. So those simple things to I've done that. I remember I was working with a company, and we did a simple activity like that. Where in the team, I asked everyone to name 2 things that motivate them when they're not at work. And man, just in a 10-minute conversation, people saw overlaps in hobbies, and it was very powerful. And that was with, I remember people that had worked together for 10 years and had not known that someone else, you know, did mountain biking or raised, you know, dogs or whatever it might be, loved gardening. So allowing that to come up, you know, in the work context can help make for a more connection in the group, and thereby a greater rapport. And as you have more of that, then it's easier to overcome problems and challenges. You know, I worked with ESPN, and a manager, they said, whenever we start a staff meeting, we always start the same way. We name 5 things that are going well. And usually it's pretty easy because things are going pretty well, but sometimes they're not going well. We never skip that step. We name 5 things that are going well because that's our touchstone. That's our home room to take on the next challenge that we might have today. And so it's just regroup and realize that we can do it, and we are a team, and very powerful. You know, I love that. I love those little things that make a big difference. Or I worked last fall with NASA, Johnson Space Center's out of Houston, and which is ranked #1 best place to work in federal government, by the way. That doesn't happen by accident. 2.8 million people, and that's a top agency to work in government. They're doing something right, and I got to see firsthand the things that they're doing right. And I remember, and I love that because I always pick up little things that these great companies are doing and share them with others. So, for example, one of the things that they do is that whenever they have a group of managers together, and so I was in some manager meetings, and as is their custom, they save 10 minutes at the end of the meeting to go around the group and have every manager share something they've done to recognize someone on their staff since we last have been together. And they said, as they share it, you can just feel the pride and excitement of the group go up, and they know something else, that their managers will take notes on each other's ideas. That's a great one, Jerry. I'm going to try that, you know. And they become a self-learning organization to get better and better at this topic. Of course, they're #1, you know. It's just brilliant, you know. But why don't other companies do that, you know? Or and maybe they would if they're watching and they can use that idea right now.
Value delivered.
Yeah, those Dr. Ball, those are all awesome ideas and examples, and I love how, like, for example, they'd all translate so well to Zoom in this kind of new virtual weird reality we're living in, and like they could all really go a long way to set the tone for a really positive meeting as well. Like that concept of a praise barrage, like I bet you start off a meeting with that's gonna light up the room. You're gonna have engaged people, they're gonna be participating, good energy levels. Like but to contrast that, I've obviously attended some Zoom meetings where it's not that, and those are some really good tactical examples. That's outstanding.
Let's start off with blame. How come this problem happened?
Yeah, right. A brainstorming session, right?
Yeah, great. Oh, my camera's going. Sorry.
Outstanding. I'm gonna jump back to the presentation, just move to wrap here, just because I'm a little bit wary of people's time. So we're gonna be jumping in and answering questions. I saw a question from Alex come in. We'll be answering that in just 1 second. So thank you for asking that. But if anybody else has questions they want to ask, please feel free to jump in now. We're gonna run through those in a few moments. And just to recap, we do have some just awesome special takeaways. So again, Dr. Bob, thank you so much. Everybody's for the people who are in the US, we're going to be sending you a Kindle, a version of 1001 Ways to Engage Employees, Dr. Bob's newest book. For those of you in Canada, looks like we'll be mailing them out. In addition to that, we've got a really cool takeaway. These have been really popular. It's the 5 key takeaways of belonging and bringing your values to life. And we'll just be emailing those out as a follow-up or a takeaway from today's session. And then a couple more quick things. So I'm going to pop these up on screen, and then I'm going to be opening up one more poll question where you can say you're interested or not interested. And those are, we've had a lot of interest from participants in joining a mastermind group. And so we're going to launch a small closed mastermind group. It is just for senior HR practitioners and people leaders. There's only 6 spots left. We had people asking to join it. And we're like, okay, we'll open this up. We only have a few spots left. In a few moments, we'll launch a poll question. You can, if you're interested, just let us know. We'll be meeting once a month via Zoom, and I think you're gonna get some outstanding value from it. I'm a part of a mastermind group. It's companies sort of doing anywhere from like a few million to over $100 million. And the CEOs often have the same problems and issues, and they can share best practices with one another. And in a few minutes, you can solve problems that you've been maybe chipping away at for months. So yeah, it's super powerful. Also, in a second, I'll be popping up.
Is there a cost for that mastermind group?
So there's not a cost. That's a great question. There's not a cost for this mastermind group. The first 3 months are going to be completely free. There are some. We're gonna be kind of selective in how we let people into the group, and we're going to ask for commitment for those 3 months. But yeah, it's about really bringing senior people together and letting you guys have good conversations and share best practices. Next up is from Jerry and Reese, the team over at Trailblaze Partners. If you're interested in a culture first leadership training session, they have a free 1-hour consultation. And again, if you're interested in participating in this, I'll put a poll question up in just one moment. Jerry is a super senior HR person who knows this stuff, and I highly encourage you guys to chat with them.
Thank you, Jason.
Yeah, no problem, bud. And then lastly, of course, Bucket List Rewards is an employee rewards and recognition program. One of the most popular features we have is the ability to recognize for employees or managers to recognize one another and attach core values to that recognition. We work with everything from finance to super high growth tech companies to professional MBA teams like Orlando Magic. So I'm going to pop up that poll question, and you can say yes or no, or just ignore if you want to. Give me a second.
Yes, no, or I don't know.
So I'm just launching the poll questions now. So if you're interested in getting a demo from Bucket List Rewards, you can say yes or no. And then would you be interested in learning more about Trailblaze Partners? You have an option there. And then lastly, if you wanted to join a mastermind group, I
think that question
yeah, we nixed the mastermind group question, but I will promise or commit to following up via survey. I'll send out a survey and an email where people can express interest in joining the mastermind group. Great. So I'm going to go ahead and end poll. Wonderful. And let's jump into some open Q&A. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. So the first question is from Alex. So Alex, thank you so much. And Alex says, I run a franchise system across North America. Have you thought about what rewards in franchise systems motivate and excite people?
Well, people are people everywhere. So I think franchise people would be motivated by the same things. So, asking them what they value, giving them those things as they perform is kind of the long and short of it all. A lot of companies get waylaid, and they don't start with what their employees want, and they impose something else on them. One of my favorites is like years of service. We got to have years of service, and does that motivate anyone? Who cares? We've done it for 17 years. We're going to do it for 17 more. And so I think it's better to start with the people you have and find out what they most value, and it may not be the things you're doing, and then there's room to maneuver. Is what I found. And that's actually, I find that's a hard thing to get companies to do. This one corporation I'm working with now, and almost the first meeting I said, well, I like to do some focus groups to talk to employees about what they most value, what they want when they do a good job. And no, we already know what they want. Oh, well, great. What's that? They want money, benefits, promotions. Okay, I go, really? Is that what they said? No, we just know it. I go, well, let me ask them because that'd be a quick validation. No, it didn't happen. It took me a year to do a focus group in that company, and then we gave the results to the executive team, and they said do more focus groups. They couldn't believe they were hearing stuff they'd never heard before because they never asked before, and the employees weren't saying if only we had more gift cards we'd really be motivated. They're saying if my boss would just notice me once in a while, I'd be a happy camper. But it doesn't matter what I do. I work through the weekend and no one says or does anything. After a while, you don't care anymore, you know? So it's you can get clear on what the priorities should be on the program if you just start with the source.
That's right.
I love
Just
it.
see me. Yeah.
Yeah.
So important.
And as kind of a quick follow-up question to that, and Vanessa, I've got a few questions, one from Vanessa and then another from Amy here. Vanessa asks, outside of focus groups, how can you determine what they most value?
Well, most companies have some type of survey. So you can have an annual survey, employee survey, an engagement survey. You can do a pulse survey. But there's usually some type of asking people. You can't, you know, motivation is an internal construct. It's what's happening in someone's head. You can't, you have to find out from them why do they do what they do, and what would drive them to do something different. You know, it's so that comes from them sharing what's inside their head. And then if you do that on a periodic basis, then you can then show how that changes over time, or you can correlate that with other things that are important in the company. So one company I'm working with right now, they found that they can directly correlate the amount of recognition someone gets with how long they plan to stay with the company. Just a one-on-one direct correlation. And for those people that are 1% of the employees that are recognized on a daily basis, 100% chance that they plan to be there at least 3 more years. And going down to that they had like 3% that were never recognized, and it was 20% chance that they'd be gone before 3 years. You know, it's like a guarantee that this company's not going to be part of my future because no one ever notices me. I don't feel valued. I'm not learning. You know. So
awesome.
That becomes powerful for then a baseline for then, you know, improving and then showing, okay, let's try some things. Now, did it impact those scores? And in that company, 1% got it daily, and 8% got it weekly, 9%, which is kind of Gallup's average, how often people get recognized on a weekly basis by their manager for doing a good job. And we challenge them to let's take this to 90%, you know, and we're well on our way to make that happen, you know.
Awesome. I love it. And it looks like one final question from Amy. With more people working remotely, how can managers creatively and inexpensively recognize and reward their employees?
You know, the whole thing on work from home, initially it was a bonanza for engagement because managers, they had to reach out to their employees because they weren't around. And so they had to show interest in what people were doing. And that felt pretty good. And initially engagement scores shot up. Then it's kind of wavered since then. But you know, at the heart of it, if your leader takes an interest in you and the work you do, then you're going to be more motivated and loyal to that person. And especially if they could show how they have your best interest at heart, then why would you go someplace else, you know? And so it's, I think it's very important in the sphere of influence of the leader that they do these things, these actions to connect with their people in a systematic way. And it really doesn't matter where they're sitting to do that. You know, you can reach out and call anyone. You can, you know, I was thinking about you, want to see how it was going. Is there anything I can help you with? Any questions you have? And I mean, that's a simple act, but it shows consideration. It shows that they're important to you. I think that you don't have to be sitting next to someone to get that. They can be sitting anywhere.
Awesome. Dr. Bob, that was sensational. In the spirit of recognition, you're the man. As always, you know, we did this 2 years ago. amazing then, amazing now. So thank you so much for joining us today and giving us all those practical examples. And also thank you for all the books for all the attendees as well.
Sure.
That's
Well,
amazing as well.
I love what you do, Jason. I think you got
Thank you,
a
sir.
tiger by its tail, and I keep looking for more and more of that to help others as you grow and deliver on your offering. So I think it's a powerful idea. I told you that from day one. And it's been very exciting for me to see how the success you've had since then, and doing things right.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that, sir. And thanks everybody for attending today. Jerry, Olga, thanks for joining us hosts, and everybody.
Thanks, Dr. Bob.
Have a wonderful Tuesday, and stay tuned for the takeaways. Have a great day, everybody. Take care. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.